The Dallas Cowboys are better than the Philadelphia Eagles. I've been saying it all year.
The Eagles reeling a little right now. As you heard me say on PFT, they've really been outplayed 3 weeks in a row, 4 weeks in a row.
This week, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys are playing once again, and in today's video, I will break down everything you need to know about the game. So in their first matchup, the Eagles were able to get the win. They pretty much had the lead the whole game and almost gave it up to the Cowboys, but the Cowboys made some pretty bad mistakes to give up the victory. And, you know, everyone's covered this. Everyone knows what happened. So what does this mean for this game? Well, to start things off, what does Vegas think? Vegas has the Cowboys as a 3.5 point favorite. Well, you're typically about a 3-point favorite for being at home. So I guess that means they think the Cowboys are very slightly better. And while it may feel like it happened just yesterday, like it does to me, the game actually was 5 weeks ago. And the Cowboys have played 4 games since then, and they have won all 4, but 3 have been against very low tier competition in the Giants, Panthers, and Commanders, and then they have one decent win over the Seahawks, even though, you know, watching it, I have no clue how they won that game. The Eagles, on the other hand, have had much tougher competition, and they've had their bye week. So they beat the Chiefs in Arrowhead, they beat the Bills at home in overtime, and then they got blown out by the 49ers. So yes, I know we are just coming off the Eagles getting blown out, but if you take your mind back to before this stretch of games, and you thought, hey, the Eagles are 3-1, they beat the Cowboys, they beat the Chiefs, and they beat the Bills, and then they lose to the 49ers, I think everybody would say that's a pretty good stretch of games. Like, going into the season, I thought there's a good chance we would lose to the Chiefs, Bills, or Cowboys, like any of those. I wouldn't have been shocked if we were 2-2 or 1-3. You know, 1-3 would have been worrying, but I wouldn't have been surprised. So, even though, yes, it was a blowout to the 49ers, I would like to emphasize the Eagles are still good. They're still in first place of the NFC. I don't care that, you know, everybody seems to rank the Cowboys as better at this point, and I do kind of understand a little bit, but I think there's a lot of overreaction to last week's Eagles game, and they're still, you know, the top-ranked team in the NFC. So, well, of course, the teams are, you know, roughly the same teams as they were about a month ago. What has changed? So, for the Eagles, over the past month, their defense has gotten significantly worse. Part of it is due to injuries, especially to Zach Cunningham, even though it appears that he is coming back. However, Darius Slay was just on the injury report, so who knows? But he'll probably be fine because it said it was just a rest day. But pretty much since the Dolphins game, this Eagles defense has struggled. They gave up 31 against Washington. They had a terrible second half against the Cowboys. They gave up 17 points in the first half against the Chiefs, which I guess doesn't sound that bad, but watching it, you know, you weren't impressed by the Eagles' defense, and that's the start of when teams started to run on the Eagles with success, which used to be the strong point of the defense, and it has definitely softened since then. Then against the Bills, Josh Allen could just do whatever he wanted. They came out to a big lead, and somehow Jalen pulled it together and they were able to win, but they did give up 34 points in that game. And then against the 49ers, you know, you have one good quarter in the first quarter, and then it all falls apart and you give up 42 points. So over the past 5 weeks, the Eagles have given up over 30 points per game, and that's not sustainable at all. That would lead to a lot of losses. And if you say, hey, is it the running side of the ball? Is it the passing side of the ball? It's both. Teams are running with ease against the Eagles, which did not exist at all a month ago. And then, of course, as we all kind of expected, you know, the Eagles' passing defense has still been bad. But if Jalen Hurts is playing at his best, they can easily overcome this against anybody. I mean, I know they got blown out against the 49ers, but if they would have scored 2 touchdowns instead of 2 field goals in the first quarter, who knows what would have happened. And, you know, those 2 changes could have easily let the Eagles win. And then finally with the Eagles, what injuries have appeared? The biggest one is Zach Cunningham and Dallas Goedert. on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. And especially last week, we saw how important both of them were, especially with our linebacker Morrow, whatever, giving up over 200 passing yards in that single game. The other injury is Slay, as I mentioned briefly earlier, but we don't really know anything about that yet, and he's still likely to play this week. And then finally, for additions, we did add Leonard, the linebacker from the Colts, and everything I've looked into pretty much says that he's washed because of back injuries, and he's just not the same player that he used to be. I mean, the Colts paid him to leave, but it can't be worse than how bad our linebackers were last week. So, improvement, I guess. But overall, I would say the Eagles are about where they were previously before the Cowboys game. And then how much does this game matter for the Eagles? And the answer is a lot. If the Eagles beat the Cowboys this week, first off, it keeps them in first place for the NFC. So, you want that bye. Second of all, if they have a 2-game lead over the Cowboys and the tiebreaker from winning the head-to-head, I don't really see how it would be possible for them to not win the division, thus at least giving them, home field advantage and playing against a bad team. And this is because of them being ahead and the fact that after the Cowboys game, the Eagles play the Seahawks, who are decent, the Giants twice, and the Cardinals. They're going to be heavy favorites in 3 of those games and will definitely be favorites at Seattle. Cowboys, on the other hand, play the Bills, the Dolphins, the Lions, and the Commanders after the Eagles. And I would be shocked if the Cowboys don't lose at least 1 or 2 of those. So, as far as divisional standings go, I think the Eagles are in a pretty good spot, even if they do mess up and lose this game. Okay, so enough of the Eagles. Now for the Cowboys. So, what has happened? They have essentially done the exact same thing they did before. The only difference, I would say, is the Cowboys offense since probably the Rams game, so right before the Eagles game, the Cowboys offense has gotten a lot better, and Dak Prescott is playing very well. And this is a pretty significant change because offense scoring, of course, is much more likely to happen than relying on your defense to score some touchdowns, which they have gotten a bunch of, but you just can't rely on that. And on the other side of the ball, the Cowboys defense has showed out in every single game. Again, the Cowboys defense has continued to blow out bad teams and look suspect against good teams. So we'll see this week if they continue to look suspect against the Eagles. Essentially, it seems like their season's going the exact same as it has in the past, and this game is super important for them. If they lose it, they, as I just said, have pretty much no hope at the division, which means they would have to play all of their games in the playoffs on the road, and this season they have been much, much worse on the road than they have been at home. But that is another factor in this week's game, because of course they play the Eagles at home, and they're currently 6-0 at home, and have blown out almost every single team that they've played. And as far as injuries go, really nothing notable for who's questionable for this week. The Dallas Cowboys are pretty much the same team as they were a month ago playing the Eagles. So what do I think will happen? I think the Eagles are going to win. I think the Eagles are going to win because I think they're kind of embarrassed how last week went against the 49ers. I think they're going to be pretty amped up, and they just want to prove to the world that they're, not overrated. So I think it will be a really close game. I think it's going to be pretty high scoring because I just don't see how the Eagles defense can slow down Dak Prescott that effectively. I think it will be kind of like the Cowboys Seahawks game-ish scoring level, maybe like 35-31 Eagles win. So for this to happen, Jalen Hurts needs to play much, much better than he did last week. But I'm not sure how the Eagles defense is going to manage to slow down this Cowboys offense, who have averaged scoring over 30 points in the last 6 or 7 weeks. So anyways, thanks for watching the video. Leave your score predictions down below, and watch some more videos. I'll see you later, and subscribe.